Welcome to another episode of Cookie Vision. In this video, I'm going to be making a pirate ship. Now, I didn't have a pirate ship cookie cutter, but I did have a sailboat, and that'll do just fine. I'm going to start on the hull of the ship, so I'm going to outline it with a piping consistency brown royal icing and a tip number 2, and I'm going to fill it in with a flooding consistency of the same color, which I have here in a squeeze bottle. For the flooding consistencies in this video, my squeeze bottles have a coupler attachment fitted with the number 4 tip, but a regular squeeze bottle will work just fine if that's what you have. Use your scribe tool to get all the icing towards the edges and pop any air bubbles. While the icing is still wet, I'm going to pipe 3 dots into the brown icing using a flooding consistency light blue royal icing in a squeeze bottle. It'll sink into the brown icing and become level with it. These will be the windows. I've switched the tip on the brown piping consistency royal icing to a number 3 to get a bigger opening for the masts. We'll leave room for the large sail in the middle and then a little bit of room at the top right for a small flag. I've created an old parchment color using white and a touch of brown and black, and using a piping consistency in number 2 tip, I'm piping the outside of the sail, connecting the corners to the mast. I'm using scalloped lines to give it more of a wind-swept look. Then I'm filling it in using a flooding consistency of the same color in a squeeze bottle. Use your scribe tool to get all the icing towards the edges and pop any air bubbles. For the flag, I'm using a piping consistency black royal icing fitted with a number 2 tip and filling it in with a black flooding consistency in a squeeze bottle. When making black royal icing, keep in mind that less is more when it comes to the dye. This is especially helpful when it comes to color bleeding. You only need to add enough dye to get a nice charcoal gray. It'll deepen in color to a nice black as it sits. I'm going to let all the flooded layers dry for about 6 to 8 hours, or overnight before moving on to all the details. To get a worn look on the sails, we're going to antique it using a mixture of brown dye and an edible alcohol. I'm using vodka. You only need to use enough dye to slightly tint the alcohol, so it's really diluted. With a clean brush, I'm going to go over the entire sail with a thin layer of plain vodka, and then I'm going to dab the edges with the brown dye and vodka mixture. I'm going to clean my brush with water, dry it off, dip it in more plain vodka, and use it to blend and blot the dye on the sail. You can keep doing this to get the look that you want. If you're concerned about alcohol content, don't be. It's just a carrier for the dye to make it paintable, and it will completely evaporate. You'll want to let this thoroughly dry to touch before moving on to the next step. Setting it in front of a fan will definitely help it dry faster. For the stripes on the sail, I'm using a red Chef Master food decorating pen. This is the bold tip. I'm using the fine tip of a brown Chef Master food decorating pen to outline the stripes and add some broken lines to the rest of the sail. I'm also going to draw in some rough boards to the ship hull. Stagger the lines and add little dots to the ends to look like nails. For the skull on the flag, I'm using this white Sugar Crafty chalk pen, which I just recently found. It's really handy for little white details, especially on dark backgrounds. If you don't have one of these, you could use a piping consistency white royal icing and a smaller tip, or you could use a small brush and a touch of white dye diluted with a little bit of alcohol. But if you don't have one of these pens, definitely look into it. They're super handy to have, and sometimes white gel dye tends to gunk up on your brush when you're trying to paint with it, depending on the brand, and it can be a little difficult. So having it in pen form is actually pretty convenient. I'm just using a black food dye pen for the eyes and the teeth. To finish it off, I'm using the piping consistency brown royal icing and a tip number 1 to outline the windows. And there we have the finished pirate ship. Here we have 2 other sugar cookies in the set that I'll also be adding to the Cookie Vision library. So thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to Sweetheart Baking Experiment here on YouTube for more Cookie Vision in the future. If you'd like to support my cookie adventures, you can do so through Ko-fi or Patreon, which you can find links for in the description. I'm always on the interwebs, so feel free to like me on Facebook and follow me on Instagram. My name's Cookie, and I'll talk to you next time.